What's happening, guys, and welcome back to another Sunday Scan. We have a special edition this week. I'm traveling, so I'm filming this from a beach hotel room, which is great. And I have Judah and Cody joining me on Scan to talk about some market thoughts and to share some watches. So, Judah, Cody, how you guys doing? And thanks for coming on.
We're doing good. Thanks for having us on.
Doing good, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Action-packed week in the market. I mean, we're running a deal right now with Investors Underground where people are able to kind of peek inside and see. And I feel like it's just been an incredible time to really showcase everything that IU can do. Just play after play, all different styles, small caps, large caps, long, short, options, equity. Crypto commentary and stuff. So it's just been a great time to showcase that. And we're still running the deal. We're extending it for an additional week. And so if you haven't seen that yet, definitely click the link here to see the details on that deal. And if anyone out there has signed up for this deal and they're enjoying IU, definitely leave a comment to share your experience and show other people what it's been like as you've been testing out IU. Just general market thoughts. Cody, you've been very active this week. We've been seeing, a more high VIX environment where you have some volatility, some headlines coming in. I know that you've been active with options and equity. What are you seeing kind of in the general market, and what themes are kind of popping up?
Yeah, and I guess to even go off of what you just said about the room, because you brought it up and Nate's brought it up, we haven't really done anything major since like COVID. And I know that IU has built a tremendous amount of tools within the system. And just from like my point of view, being in here for over 10 years, like what we have now is kind of amazing. So, just to kind of go off of that and this deal that we're going like for $7, it's kind of like a no-brainer. Even from scanners, like some of the scanners that we have, you have to pay like $120 a month just for those. So definitely worth it. But to go off like market thoughts, I think there's probably quite a few things that are coming up. Number one, I think Fed's not going to cut rates this July. They're going to definitely do it in September. I've been kind of following that with some tools as far as like when the likelihood of rate cuts are. So it seems like September is going to be the first one, if not a larger basis point. I've seen that shift to possibly like a half point, maybe even 3/4 of a point that they might cut. So I think the market kind of caught wind of that even a few weeks ago. And I think what we're seeing right now is still a big rotation out of big tech. And that's pretty much been the safe haven for like a year plus. And the thing that kind of gives that away is what the IWM is doing. And I've waited and watched this thing for 3 years, even since after COVID and the whole OTC market pretty much just collapsed in early 2021, is that the IWM has done nothing. So I think what we're seeing is a big rotation from, less risk into more risk names. And it's pretty apparent just based off of what the market's doing as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I've been riding the same theme where it's IWM has just been the absolute go-to for relative strength as the market is pricing in rate cuts, and as you have some unwind in some of the AI names and the big tech trade, and especially during earnings season, that's really when those names can be extra sensitive, especially in the AI space. And I'll get into this a little bit later on, but last quarter we saw lots of names kind of reporting good growth and everything from AI, but you also had high capital expenditures. And so really what you want to see after a quarter or two of that is this CapEx really translating into increased profits? And so if you have any of these companies that have been increasing their CapEx, but they haven't been really growing their top or bottom line from the AI stuff, that can be unsustainable, whereas eventually they might have to cut back on their CapEx, and then that cuts into NVIDIA and some other places. So that's just like a theme that I have on watch this week with earnings, for the next week or two with the big tech earnings. And I'll get into Meta later on, but I think some of these names could have dramatic swings if they post numbers with high CapEx, with less than par, earnings. So I'll get into some of that in a little bit. But Judah, what have you been noticing in this market? What's been working, and what themes have you really been seeing?
Yeah, so I believe it was July 11th. I put out this tweet of like really heavy breakdowns, and it was like a good basket of breakdowns on higher volume and bigger percent change. And we had like Tesla, ARM, Nvidia, like Qualcomm, Intel, like Meta, like the big large caps that have been moving, especially the AI and semiconductor theme. Like all those, they broke down the same day on very high volume and a decent pull on a percent basis. And I mean the market was pretty much near the highs at that time. And then we get some a little bit of a consolidation, a little bit of a push, and then we gap down again 2 days ago. It looks like we're going to continue to see that pressure, over the next, like Cody said, we may see that pressure for another couple months. So I definitely think the rotation is real. I think the SPY is going to continue to pull back, and then we could see the IWM and TNA. I mean, clear breakouts there, and now we've been just consolidating, a little bit choppy, but we've been consolidating for the past week or two, and now it looks like we may be slowly pushing up out of that base. But it's a little choppy, it's a little quick, so I'm not sure exactly how long we'll be in that IWM SPY, IWM TNA base, but I do think we have some rotation out of those large caps that we've been seeing and into smaller mid caps.
Yeah, and it's nice that we're all on the same page with that, because I feel like one of the benefits of trading around other people is that when you see some confluence of people looking at key variables and they're on the same page, a lot of times the rest of the market is kind of on that same page as well. And that's good to know that as long as the positioning is not too heavily skewed towards that view, that's where the market is really heading. And there's one other thing. We had some volatility over the past week, and there's one thing that hasn't really been talked about too much that, in my opinion, also impacted some of the large cap unwind. And we don't follow the currency markets too closely, but there have been some dramatic moves between the Japanese yen and the U.S. dollar. And normally that's not something I would really bring up, but the reason why I bring that up now is because the same time that Japan they're in a totally different inflation cycle. They've had the super low inflation for a very long time. They've done crazy stimulus to try to get things going. They're finally getting that. And so at the same time that they're about to maybe raise rates at their central bank, the Fed is about to cut rates. And so those things affect the currency markets a lot. And you had a huge basically snap between those two currencies. And that leads to an unwind of a lot of positioning. And because most of the global positioning is in U.S. large tech, I also think that was a liquidity drain over the last week. So not something to get too hung up on, but that's definitely something that I think impacted the markets over the past week, kind of the yen or the dollar yen unwind trade. So that's just something that was on my radar. I'm not sure, Cody, if you follow the currency markets at all or any comments on that?
I mean, I definitely knew that the yen was doing some interesting things over the last few months. I do remember seeing that headline. I hadn't actually pulled up that chart since then, but it looks like it's been pretty much melting since then. And we're actually headed to Japan in like 2 months. So I don't know if it's maybe just a happenstance that taking advantage of the the currency situation, but I've also seen like record tourism in Japan too. So that's also an interesting thing. But yeah.
Definitely. Okay, if you guys are ready, let's get into the main watches. So before we do, I'm going to give a disclaimer that none of us are financial advisors and that these are not buy or sell recommendations. This is for informational and educational purposes only. So Cody, if you're up for going first, what do you have on watch for the upcoming week?
Yeah, I mean, I have quite a few names, and I think when that happens, it's probably a positive. Like I even said, I have a whiteboard in my office, and I think it was like last time I started to write stuff down was 2020 and COVID. And right now I have like 26 different names on there. So I write them on there just to make sure they're always on my radar instead of like price alerts falling off. But I have a lot, so I'll go as fast as I can. But like one thing that I've kind of noticed, especially with Abercrombie and Fitch, it's gigantic move. It started to make me look into older names like Hanes and those type of things, check their pricing to see where they're at. But like Hanes is definitely a name that I'm looking at. And going forward, like day trading isn't a ton of what I love to do. I still do it, but like I think swing trading is a lot of where the money's at. It's just taking these positions in names and allowing them to just work for you. It is a kind of a new thing that I've gone into, but Haynes is definitely a name that I'm looking at as far as its chart breakouts on 52-week highs today. Looking at the options on that one. One that I actually had on watch when you guys messaged me to do this a few days ago was going to be BurgerFi, which my wife actually got into trading to, and it just did 300%. So that's kind of an insane thing. So to go off of that is all names that I'm going to do this weekend is anything under 50 cents, under $1 that's been just absolutely crushed this year. I'm going to be setting price alerts this weekend. And when I do that, it usually generates, 500 different price alerts. So there could be quite a few. But the other kind of two main ones that I'm looking at are, I'd say Lululemon, just because it's so beaten down. I actually have some options on this one. They've had a lot of competition against Vuori, and I can't remember the name of the other brand, but they're down 50% on the year. So that's a name. And also same kind of idea is Celsius, down 50% in 2 months. Kind of looking just for that snapback trade through those whole number areas. So like $50 on Celsius. And I think Lululemon was actually at its level today at the 250s. But I do kind of see possibly a retrace to the 275s. And I could go over more, but the one other main thing that I've gotten into a lot since we're doing this is SPX options. So extremely risky, but the reward is definitely there. I've even posted on Twitter that these things can do 20 times, 40 times move within minutes, in all honesty. So like the puts here that day, I think they went from 25 cents close to $10 in a matter of, 20 minutes? So that's just kind of a new strategy I've looked at with these 0-day to expiration options is if it's been a volatile day and I expect some sort of possible directional move like we had yesterday, crazy volatile. I mean, we basically flushed out, kind of reclaimed, everybody got bullish again, and then we closed on the lows. So like those are the kind of days that when you see that midday action, trading those high risk, high reward options, they can be amazing. And the fact that you have cap risk, like you can bet whatever dollar amount you want on this option, it'd be kind of like, and I've always said this with options, I treat it like a hand of blackjack, where I'll bet $1,000, whatever it is. And if I'm fine with losing that, but if I'm right, it can go 4x, 5x, 15x, 20x, which is the risk reward ratio that you're getting. So, having the cap risk is why I like trading these things, because you can see how your day is gone, risk a certain amount of money and be fine with losing that, or double it, triple it, quadruple it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I echo that if anyone is doing very short dated options, the best way to control risk is to lower your dollar amount so that even if everything goes wrong, you're still okay. Because the trap that people fall into is that they see these very volatile, like large options moves, and I'm mostly an options trader, so I'm very familiar with this. And the trap is that people have one or two that go well, and then they size up, and then it goes to nothing. And so if people have a good thesis, if there's a good range in the market and the options are reasonably priced, then if you are going to take a shot at this, where it's like, even if it's a coin flip of 50-50, the payout can be 10-1. And so that can be a positive expected value activity from time to time, as long as you're playing with a small enough amount of money that, even if you have 2 or 3 of these positions that you do over the course of a day or a couple of days and everything goes wrong, you're still fine. So treat the position size like the stop on a regular position.
Yeah, and even something like if you were to trade this option right in here, I know that the option, like let's say you chase that move down, if within that 2-minute candle, that thing could be down 80% within minutes of being like, oh, I'm gonna bet against this, and now let's say you bought X amount and you're down 80% on that option in 45 seconds. That's definitely a wake-up call on how to learn and trade these options if you're even interested in it. But they definitely move a lot when they do move.
Definitely. Yeah. This is a unique market over the last couple of days where those have been, they have worked well. So I, like Cody's saying, like I'm saying, I think the best piece of advice, lower the amount of money that you're doing these on. And then as soon as it doubles, cut half of it, get your capital back if you want to do some of this. But this is not, these are in addition to other good trading things. This is not a staple, and this is not how someone can make a consistent living. But there are opportunities where the risk reward is favorable. And so this is one of those times. Great. Any other thoughts, Cody, or should we go on to Judah?
I mean, not a whole lot. I guess just to kind of cap it off as far as with what I mentioned earlier about rate cuts. usually how that works is people start looking at big ticket items first, like what is my new monthly mortgage payment going to be? What's a new car payment going to be? How much is this new TV? So it's like you go down the line of expensive items that people are interested in buying. And I think the home builders are just leading this giant move. If you've taken a look at anything as far as home builders, they have, 4 or 5x'd in the last year. And I think that's a prelude to what their profits are likely to be, as long as the whole market doesn't collapse in the next year and a half. Big ticket items for rate cuts are usually the first things to look at. Things like Home Depot, buying stuff that costs a lot that people put on monthly payment plans.
Great. Yeah, those are excellent thoughts and good watches. Judah, what do you have on watch for the upcoming week?
Yeah, so pretty much these two up here, they came out after hours saying that they're going to come out with data on Monday morning. So I'm just going to wait and see, what kind of data it comes out with. There's pretty big charts on both of them here. So I guess depending on the data, I'll see what I'm going to do there. But I like when, a company pre-announces that they're going to come out with data. I mean, a lot of the times they do come out positive. I just don't like to take that risk. But I will keep on watch in case, it is positive, then I'll try to trade these on the long side. And then we got KYMR, which had a PR here. This was on scans for a delayed reaction this day here. We got a decent move, and now we're just starting to tighten up here. So if we could build back up through that 45 level, maybe we'll get some secondary move again. And then Joby and Oust, these are just pretty similar setups in the sense that these push, they had 4 or 5 days, and then they're starting to just fade back a little bit. And you could see a clear, you could see when we're going to start to change in direction. Both of these attempted today, and they didn't really do much. But if they can start to curl back up, I mean, given the volume it's had on this push and how steady it was, then I'll be interested in those reversals. Then ACB, TVTX, and SLRN are just three stocks that have decent charts. They've been pushing out pretty nicely and steadily, and now they're just starting to tighten up. The thing with ACB though is that cannabis names, they don't really look good. A lot of them don't look so well. Some of them look decent, but not the greatest. I think in my opinion, that this is the best one. But if they all fail, this may fail. I'm just keeping an eye out if it doesn't, because I think the chart there is pretty good. And then as for liquidity traps, TCS and MIRA, TCS is just, it's slowly pushing back today. I think it closed at the highs. And the volume drop off is good enough for me. And if that 120, 125 could build, we probably get that secondary squeeze out. And then MIRA is just putting in these inside days. And we get nice volume on this day here. It doesn't really do much, but it still hasn't broken down yet. So curl back up through, that 3 level, then we could be looking at, secondary squeeze out.
Great. And then Judah, could you go over the chart SERV? This was an interesting one from the week, and I think it caught a couple people off guard, but you had a spot on read with it, saying it's part of a liquidity trap, part of the perpetual squeezer, similar to the ZAPP and IVP kind of name. So could you just walk people through your thought process and why were you able to see how this was likely to play out?
So I don't remember exactly how it was trading and why I thought it would do what it did, but
I can tell you why.
So yeah.
I'll interject. It was an after hours filing that showed NVIDIA traded it. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, it could easily be a Sound 2.0.
Yeah. So the range anticipation was just pretty much using the range it's had from here to here. We get this this pretty much $3 move, and I figured that if this 475.5 level is going to build, I think we test that 8. And we tested that 8, and then we closed up near the highs, and I think it was 8, 9 after hours, and I mentioned that it could probably go to 12, and that was using the same range anticipation from what it's been doing and where it's coming from. And I don't think we hit 12 that day, but Monday morning came and we hit 12 and 13, and it just kept on going. And now we put in these two inside days. We're decreasing on volume. This here was the initial liquidity trap. I'm not sure whether or not you would have, sold or got stopped out here, depending where your risk was, because this is it's a pretty wide candle. And then yesterday, it hit my alerts when I noted an IU. This is the hourly here. As it crosses up through this, my alert hit at 9:20, but we on the hourly we could clearly see that we're flagging here. The volume's pretty much completely dried up at this point relative to how it's been moving on day 1, 2, 3, and as we cross up through there, the risk, you could use whatever you want. You could use the low of this hourly candle and it becomes pretty tight over there, about 2%, and then it just kept on grinding, and I was using these levels to determine where we were going to go. And then once you see something like this, right, it reminded me of NE on this day here. Just something, it wasn't as this is way more beautiful than Serve was, but when something's pushing out here and closing kind of right near these highs, this is, you can see the volume, you can see how it dries up. This is just the first day, which is when you want to get in, but it's a good indication for a possible continuation, and that's pretty much how we closed yesterday. So once we started trending, and especially when we broke over yesterday's highs, I figured that it's going to have a continued move. And the move we've had is, my mouse is lagging right now, but the move we had was from 3 to 12, and now we come back down to sort of this midpoint. And once we break back out, you could kind of see the second legs usually expand much bigger than the first. And in this case, the first was huge, but I figured maybe we'd be getting close to those $15 to $20 range. And today I noted the $16 range because of how it was moving today. It's really just we get this $2 move, we start flagging a little bit, you're expecting potentially another $2. And as we fail here, this is when I actually sold as we broke down through here, and then I peeled the rest off. But it's just, when you don't have much history, there's nothing else you could really do other than use the range it's having at the moment. And that's just pretty much how I was going, how I was trading it. And as long as, if it fails and fails levels, I'll move on. It's all risk-based. You're moving up stops and things like that. But otherwise, you got to have an open mind. You could go to this day here, you could go to this day here, but something like this, this huge move, huge volume, drying up. If we start to curl back up 9/10s, it's ready for a power move. We've seen it, especially, lately. If, Rent and RGS, this is RGS, Rent, not it. Rent over here, NNE, if these aren't, warnings, it was just the perfect. And yeah, the NVIDIA after hours, and it was what it is. There's not much explanation other than that, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And then Cody, you said that this one reminded you of SOUN, and it was a very kind of similar setup.
Yeah, if not almost nearly the same. Because I remember just after hours, people were and it was just the filing, and NVIDIA was going crazy. And sometimes all you need is just the fact of people saying, oh, word of mouth spreads, and people just find out, oh, NVIDIA owns Sound. Just sometimes the simplest things make people buy stocks. So you just hear that regardless, and you're like, oh, I'm going to buy Sound because that's how it was. And it held for 5 days in that area. And then it finally squeezed everybody out. But when I saw that Serve thing, because I was here after hours, I was like, this is probably going to be the exact same thing. It didn't even matter whether it was old or new, but it's just that people finally knew. And I think it's taken me even years to be I'll be ahead on some of these crazy ideas, but if nobody knows, it doesn't matter. So sometimes you just need the news event to make people go, oh, or to even care. So same kind of thing with like NFTs. I think people didn't care until they saw that $63 million headline with Beeple, and then it was just all the rage. So even in just my own trading, it's like I may have an idea, but if nobody knows about it and nobody cares, it's not going to work. So just kind of keeping that in the back of my mind too on this sector trade that I think esports is going to have in the next year. I think that's kind of the same thing. Like I'm a little early to the idea. I know that I am just because the news came out with the Olympics and everything, but computer hardware, monitors, software, streaming services, all these things I anticipate is likely to get a boost because, any kid that's like, I could be in the Olympics for playing esports, I think that's kind of a big thing. And when wintertime comes rolling around, people are getting back in their houses, they'll realize, I need to upgrade my computer. It doesn't run my game anymore. And even I talked to Tim Grattani the other day. I was like, dude, we should play StarCraft 2 again. Just because of what that headline did in my brain, to even reach out to him and be like, hey, remember this? We used to play this game all the time, like 7 years ago. So
yeah, and then you also had EA on watch, right, Cody?
Yeah, and I still do. And the reason was because somebody traded I think it was like the 150s for this week, which turned out to be a 0 because it got nuked on, I think it was Friday or Monday that day. So it's almost like, hey, we found this out and we're going to kill it. So, and sometimes reading these options is a little bit tricky too. So I'm still as far a fan of that, especially even more so after this news. This chart reminds me of, and you can pull them all up. This reminds me of Hershey's a few years ago, and I'll just even dig it up if you have mine on here. So like that setup it's been 5 years. It's pretty much done nothing. EA. The last time I looked at Hershey's, it looked like this. Basically did nothing for 5 years, and I think it more than doubled, almost tripled. It also reminds me of GoDaddy. Same kind of setup, like 5 years absolutely stagnant and then finally just explodes higher. And I anticipate that with EA, especially with their games are probably going to be more expensive. So I think it's like $100 now for the newest game. I could be wrong, but I think it's right up there with inflation. So one popular game, and I think all that hits the bottom line, especially for like upcoming Christmas stuff. If there's a new game out that gets popular, esports, like it's in my brain feels like a no-brainer to just be long EA. And obviously it could, obviously it's not investment advice, but it's just how my brain works. And even the book one of the books that I'm reading is, I think it's called AI 2041. And it just so happens that the current chapter I'm on deals with gaming and AI and the possibilities that throwing AI into games would essentially make the game forever difficult because it will learn off of you, learn off of your habits, and always try to defeat you, and then bring it down a little bit easier. So kind of like how Bitcoin and mining works, where the difficulty will get higher and lower based off of the current mining power. So same kind of concept with video games.
Great. All right, Judah, can we bring up your chart again? Then I'll walk through a couple of my watches for the week. So the main idea is IWM, and that's the go-to for relative strength. So I can sound like a broken record sometimes when I have these similar names on watch, but really what I'm looking for is where is the path of least resistance? Where's money naturally and like just easily flowing to? And that makes for very easy trades. It makes for smooth trades. And so what I look for is something like a sector like IWM, or it could be like NVIDIA or Tesla or something where when they're hot, when they're running, I like to stick with those themes because, dips get bought. They trend well. They're basically the go-to. So anytime the market is bullish, this is like a go-to name, and you don't really have to think about it or plan a whole lot. It's more just identifying how is the market acting, and then is this relatively strong? And then looking for things like, is it soaking up dips? Is it staying above VWAP? Is it, up a higher percentage amount than other things? And that makes it very easy to trend it, throughout the week. And then once it gets overextended towards the end of the week, you can kind of play that mean reversion trade back down as long as it's extended or overextended leading up to that. If we're just, slowly creeping up towards that expiration, then that's not that's not the same setup leading into like a mean reversion or to play the dip. So I like to stick with these themes. I like to trend them earlier on in the week, and then as they get overextended, I flip my bias and maybe look for puts instead of calls when I'm looking to play that. So we have the Federal Reserve meeting next week. We're going to have more a better gauge of how they're going to cut rates, when they're going to cut rates, how much are they going to cut rates. And I think as long as those headlines are kind of out there, I think that this is going to remain a go-to name. And IWM is just looking for a large breakout on multiple timeframes. So that's kind of the first name that I have on watch. And then the next one is NUZE. So this has been a name that Nate had on watch in the room, and I traded it throughout the week. And this is one of those kind of liquidity traps and potentially one that could turn into a perpetual squeezer. If we can zoom in a little bit more on that, Judah. So really with like these liquidity traps are the ones that work really well. They have that huge volume day to start out with, and then they kind of, go sideways, they dip a little bit, the volume totally dries up, and then they start to creep back towards the highs. But the ones that get really, really good, and I'm not saying that this will play out, I'm saying it's on watch in case it starts, acting like how I think it's going to act. The ones that consolidate for a couple of days, they go towards the highs, they slam back down. They go towards the highs and they slam back down. Every time that happens, you have a new layer of shorts kind of getting in saying, oh, every time this thing goes up, it slams back down. And they kind of base their risk on those highs. And so if you have a situation where you have some swing shorts in here, you have some day trading shorts, and everyone just looks for those candles up in like that channel and it slams back down, those are the ones that if it eventually breaks above those highs, that's how you can get those crazy circuit to circuit moves. And that's what I'll be watching. So while they're kind of in the channel, and Jude, I'm not sure if we can get a more granular look of like a 60-minute candle or 30-minute candle or something, but yeah, you can see as it goes up and tests like the upper end of that channel, it gets slammed back down, but it's starting to naturally kind of work its way up. And so if you have like a huge volume day come back in, then we could really break those highs and just have a massive move. So this is on watch as like a long trade for me, perpetual squeezer, liquidity trap style. So that's a big one. And Nate has really been the one who put this on my radar, and he's been talking about this a lot. So the key to kind of playing these is to not buy them, towards that upper end of the channel, because what it's doing, it's collecting shorts and it's slamming back down. So if you're going to play this, it's about kind of playing towards the lower end of the channel. And then as it starts to get towards the day where it might have like that outlier volume again, that's when you can kind of, add in and see that breakout. So that's a big watch for me this week. And then the final one that I have is Meta. So they have earnings coming up. And this was kind of the theme that I was talking about, where some of these large cap names who have been involved in AI, they've had high capital expenditures, but they haven't seen a whole lot of profit increase from that. Meta has many parts of their business, and some of them are doing quite well. But as far as like the AI theme and sector, I think it's possible that they report earnings and they don't quite meet the mark, and they have high capex, and they could flush hard. But if I'm wrong and they have good earnings and the other parts of the business are carrying it, then my thesis would not really be there. But what I'm looking for is for a potential big move down after earnings. But if they have good earnings, it gaps up, then no harm, no foul. It's just something that's on watch for me. And then kind of the final thing is we can pull up IBIT. Crypto, Bitcoin, this is definitely on watch, I think, for a couple of us. And this is almost like an extension of IWM, where you have like the small cap universe, and then within that, what's like the highest volatility stuff. And, also related to some of the currency moves, I think that Bitcoin is really set up for a nice breakout. And you also have the big crypto conference in Nashville in the upcoming week. And so you could have some wild, kind of headlines come out of that. Are they going to, back hundreds of billions of dollars as a strategic reserve or not? It's like, who knows? But I think even without those headlines, Bitcoin could be set up. Cody?
I said that would be something, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think even people like RFK Jr., they've said similar things. So again, on the trail of politics, without getting into it, people say all kinds of things. They're trying to appeal to voter bases. So I think you could have some wild headlines come out, but we'll see. But yeah, you guys have any thoughts on any of that or any of the watches?
With Bitcoin, I mean, it's interesting because we've had some nasty pullbacks the past 2 days on like some of these names after I'm sure it collected like a lot of longs, and then we just pretty much give back the move on all of them. But now, I guess besides Mara, like CLSK looks pretty decent. I mean, a lot of these, I mean, they're building. I mean, they're building huge on the weekly frames. If you just zoom out there, you could see how big these flags are. And I said in the past, like this coin, these kind of reminded me of what SMCI did back here and what Nvidia did back here. Like you could kind of see that we're just consolidating now in a higher weekly time frame. So yeah, I mean, I think we could push. And what's interesting now is that the AI crypto theme, which is Cores and Wolf and IREN, and IREN had a short report here, the massive volume, and it's just been going lower since. But Cores is pretty much holding up very nicely here, and we could probably see people move on from things like Riot or like some others. I don't know which, but I feel like now there's so many that are coming out that like you're gonna just want to have to focus on the best looking ones and not what you're familiar with. Like Mara and Riot, they when they moved back here, especially, they moved great, but there's so much more that are moving now. Like RREN, you could have caught this move instead, and Cores, you could catch these other moves. There's a lot of names now that are just moving out and look pretty good. So it's just keeping on watch the best looking setups there. I think Coin is, if you're going to buy one name, it's probably going to be Coinbase. Cody could have some thoughts on that, but I think just focus on them.
I think it kind of comes down to this point where it's like a proxy now. So years ago, the only thing that you could trade with Bitcoin was GBTC because it was the only thing listed. It was the only thing Bitcoin-wise. I remember the tweet when I was like, the only thing I could find that you could actually trade on a publicly listed stock, and it was all the way back here, was GBTC. So now you actually have all these different things. So like when we had the move during 2020, 2021, you really could just trade the miners and MSTR, I think is the name. I rarely ever even look at it, but now you can trade. And I think with the news this weekend, it's almost doing the exact same thing as the Bitcoin ETFs is ETHA. So now you have Ethereum, spot Ethereum ETFs. So, I started looking at this one yesterday at the 24s. I actually have some of it, and I think it's probably going to be the exact same thing. It's probably going to have a crazy breakout because people anticipate this ETF and they think, oh, everybody's going to know the day it comes out, everybody's going to trade it, and that's not really the market that we're in because there's not a lot of mania. So people aren't really showing up for IPOs and those type of things, and it's the same thought processes. Once the headlines kind of come out, oh, I can buy Ethereum in my brokerage account with just an ETF, just like with Bitcoin. I think you're going to probably see a decent move, and it basically did the same thing. It did nothing for a week, 2 weeks, and then people are like, oh, I can finally buy this, and it just had a massive move. So I think Ethereum is likely to do close to the same thing. So I wouldn't be shocked if we all of a sudden see this thing like $30. And Ethereum going over and probably hitting new all-time highs in the short term, just because of that, like, nobody knows about it thing. It shocks me because we, as traders, we're very attuned to what is happening on a day-by-day basis with the market, the news. We know like all these things, and we just have to filter out what is going to appeal to the masses if they find out about this news. So like, that's why esports is now like a thing that I'm gonna make sure I pay attention to. Obviously crypto because of the election and all that stuff, but like the thought process that I've tried to adapt over the years is literally, if I've been so early on names, I need to make sure that I kind of refine the process and stick with the ones that I think appeal to a broader market.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you guys for joining me on Scan this week. We covered a lot, and we are still running the deal. So definitely click the link in the description to take advantage of that. IU is going to close this very soon, and this is literally the best deal that they've offered for people to get a peek into all the technology, all the commentary and everything. And I know that we had a huge response of people and a huge influx of people come in to see it. And we've had just super positive feedback. So if anyone wants to leave a comment and share their experience, we're happy to see you there. So Judah, Cody, thank you for joining me. And I hope you guys have a great week ahead.
Yeah.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Later.